Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that is absolutely critical. We're diving into the ultimate strategic guide for building an impenetrable, multi-layered cybersecurity architecture. Whether you're guarding a lean startup's data or defending a massive, sprawling enterprise network, getting a grip on this framework is completely non-negotiable in today's threat landscape.
Let's kick things off by busting a pretty dangerous myth. Is one single line of defense actually enough? Let's be real. Relying on just one security tool, like slapping an antivirus software on your company laptops and calling it a day, is like putting a cheap padlock on a screen door. Sure, it might keep honest people out, but it is nowhere near enough to protect your modern digital castle from relentless, sophisticated adversaries. So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by breaking down some of those single defense myths, jump right into the cybersecurity iron triangle, look at how these layers work together in synergy, share some pro tips on SSL and SIEM, and finally, wrap things up with the Zero Trust strategy. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Breaking Single Defense Myths. Let's completely dismantle this outdated idea that enterprise security is a one-and-done deal.
The reality today, we absolutely have to stop thinking of defense as just one big wall. Instead, we've got to look at it from the outside in. We need a layered approach. Think of it as setting up sequential barriers, the app layer, the network layer, and the endpoint layer. We're systematically stripping away attacks as they try to dig deeper into your systems. If they manage to break through the first wall, boom, there's a second and a third waiting right there to stop them.
Moving on to Section 2, the cybersecurity iron triangle. Let's see how this multi-layered approach actually builds out our foundational defense.
Looking at the complete defense in-depth blueprint, you can see it's a really solid three-tier system. See that transparent outer boundary? That's our application defense, acting like a protective dome. Inside that dome, we've got our network radar scanning the perimeter and internal traffic. And right smack in the middle, locking down your core data, is the endpoint fortress itself. Let's break these three components down real quick.
Layer number 1 is the WAF, or Web Application Firewall. Basically, this is the outermost moat of your castle. It sits right between the Wild West of the internet and your web servers, filtering HTTP and HTTPS traffic to stop common but super devastating attacks like SQL injections. But honestly, its real superpower is something called virtual patching. Look, when a new vulnerability drops, you don't always have time to patch the actual server right away. The WAF instantly recognizes the exploit's fingerprint and blocks it, buying your IT team that golden window of time to fix the real issue without leaving the front door wide open.
But what if an attacker just bypasses the web app entirely and goes straight for the network? Well, that's where our second line comes in, the IDP or IPS intrusion detection and prevention systems. If the WAF is your moat, the IDP is your internal courtyard radar. It's constantly watching all your network packets, looking for known exploits or sketchy backdoor comms. This is the exact tool you need to stop fast-moving network worms like WannaCry in their tracks. And crucially, a solid IDP detects lateral movement, meaning if a hacker somehow compromises a low-level smart TV or printer in the office, the IDP spots their weird scanning behavior the second they try to crawl over to your sensitive databases.
Okay, but let's say an attack actually slips past those outer layers, maybe through an encrypted tunnel, or an employee uses their work laptop at a sketchy coffee shop. Our final vault door is EDR, or Endpoint Detection and Response. Old-school antivirus just uses a static list of known bad files. Yeah, that's not going to cut it anymore. EDR steps up with behavioral heuristics. It's brilliant. Even if it's literally never seen a file before, if that file suddenly tries to encrypt 3,000 documents in 1 second, EDR violently shuts it down. It also uses memory protection to block those sneaky, fileless attacks that run straight in RAM. Plus, it records the whole attack path so your team can do precise forensics later.
Section 3. The power of defense synergy. We've got our three pillars, but the real magic happens when they team up.
Here's the thing. These three layers aren't just isolated silos. They're a highly coordinated team. It's a classic 1 + 1 + 1 is way greater than 3 scenario. Just look at how they handle an attack step by step. During the initial external recon, the WAF is swatting away scanning tools. If a payload somehow slips through, the IDP catches the network packets mid-flight. And if it actually lands, the EDR intercepts the local file. Even with a brand new zero-day exploit, the WAF stops the web escalation, the IDP blocks the lateral spread, and the EDR flat-out denies the memory calls at the finish line. They literally cover each other's blind spots perfectly.
Moving on to Section 4, our pro tips on SSL and SIEM. Having the tools is a great start, but optimizing them is how you actually win the war.
So here's a pretty terrifying stat. Over 90% of network traffic today is encrypted. Now that's fantastic for your privacy, but it's an absolute nightmare for your defense if you aren't ready for it. Attackers can literally hide their malware right inside these dark encrypted tunnels and waltz past your firewalls. To fix this, your WAF and IDP absolutely must have SSL inspection enabled. Think of it like a security checkpoint that securely decrypts, inspects, and re-encrypts the traffic. You're basically turning on the flashlights. Without it, those expensive frontline defenses you just built, they're completely blind.
All right, so we've got our visibility back, but there's still a massive hurdle. We have to end the era of standalone systems. Think about it. If your IDP spots a network attack, but your WF has no clue it's happening, a human has to manually read an alert and update the firewall rules. Humans just aren't fast enough to handle high-speed modern attacks. We desperately need an automated brain. And that brings us to the SIEM, Security Information and Event Management. By using a SIEM as your central intelligence hub, you totally automate your defense. Picture this. Step 1. The IDP catches a weird scan from an outside IP address. Step 2. Instead of just dumping it in a log file somewhere, it shoots the alert straight to the SIEM brain. Step 3. The SIEM processes the threat and instantly commands the WAF to block that malicious IP across your entire infrastructure. Boom. Zero human intervention required. An attack on one vector instantly hardens your defenses everywhere else. It's a total game changer. Section 5. Zero Trust Security Strategy. Let's zoom out from the technical tools for a second and talk about the overarching philosophy you need to actually secure your business. Because here's the harsh truth. Even the absolute strongest iron triangle can get bypassed by a zero-day exploit or worse, a compromised internal account. I mean, if a hacker steals your IT director's password, those outer walls don't even matter. That's exactly why we have to operate on the principle of least privilege. No user, no app, and no device gets an all-access pass to the network by default. Everyone and everything gets access to the absolute bare minimum they need to do their specific job, and nothing more. This right here is the never trust, always verify mindset in action. Notice how every single asset is compartmentalized with its own locks and shields. We're assuming the network is already hostile, so if one layer falls or an account goes rogue, the damage is totally contained. We're rigorously limiting lateral movement by verifying identity, device posture, and authorization at every single micronode. It's not just about building a tall perimeter wall anymore, it's about putting a heavy-duty lock on every individual room inside the building.
All right, Section 6, Summary and Next Steps. Let's wrap this explainer up and give you some actionable takeaways so you can go secure your own environment right now.
We've covered a ton of ground today. Hopefully you can see why it is absolutely vital to ditch that passive, legacy virus scanning mindset and adopt an active, automated, multi-layered architecture. By chaining together the WAF at the edge, the IDP in the network, and the EDR at the endpoint, you're building comprehensive coverage. You're eliminating those blind spots, covering everything from web vulnerabilities all the way down to a nasty ransomware script trying to run on a laptop.
But knowing this stuff isn't enough, right? We've got to put it into practice. Here is your immediate action plan. First, run a defense gap scan on your current setup. Figure out where your blind spots actually are. Second, do a deep dive on your iron triangle. Are your WAF, IDP, and EDR genuinely deployed and active, or are they just sitting there? And third, check that connective tissue. Verify your SSL inspection is actually turned on, and make sure your SIEM is fully integrated so your tools are actively talking to each other.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Your digital castle might have a moat, but are the guards actually talking to each other? And more importantly, under a zero-trust model, who exactly holds the keys to your inner vault? So take a hard look at your defenses today. Ask yourself the hard questions. Are you truly layered, synergistic, and running on zero trust? Or are you just crossing your fingers and hoping a single, aging lock will somehow protect your entire livelihood against tomorrow's threats?